Hello and welcome back to 209 Prep Sports, Week 2 playoff edition. Kind of pretty balanced, I guess, across the board. You know, when the more you look at all the scores and the way things panned out, I think there was a lot of very close games. You had some, I don't know if I'd call them upsets, but you had some visitors go ahead and winning games on the road. And at the end of the day, you know, now we're down to basically 4 teams in each division. So there's 28 teams left out of over 80 plus that got this thing started, and starting to narrow it down. The water's starting to clear a little bit, and everybody's starting to figure out who's going to be where. So this week, obviously, you have all the 1 seeds advanced. So you have all the 1 seeds playing, if maybe an 8 seed or more than likely the 4 seed, and then you have most of the 2 seeds advanced. So pretty impressive for everybody. We'll go ahead and jump this thing off with the Kimball Wood game. I mean, Kimball doing what Kimball does. You know, you got to expect Nick Coronado and his boys just to show up. So why don't you go ahead and lead that one off, Scott?
Yeah, this one was an expected win in my book. Nick Coronado leads this team. Probably, you know, without looking at the rundown on stats, but he's, you know, obviously been recognized nationally, you know, as the Freak of the Week, I believe, 2 weeks ago.
A couple weeks ago, yeah.
And, you know, honestly, he could probably hit that just about any week. But again, you know, Kimball goes in and plays a pretty good Wood Wildcats team and roughs them up pretty good for a final score of 44-32. It was a pretty close game, but like I said, Nick Coronado leads them, 19 completions on 21 attempts for 414 yards. Average throw is almost 22 yards a throw. That's pretty amazing to me.
Yeah.
5 touchdowns and virtually a perfect quarterback ranking. Rushing the ball, he carried the ball 4 times for 45 yards. Nance carried the ball 4 times for 15 yards and touchdown. And Jermaine Nance, who is a freshman, carried the ball twice for 25 yards. On the receiving end of things, you had Willie Clifton had 5 receptions for 128 yards and a touchdown. Mason Rivera had 10 receptions, 149 yards, 2 touchdowns, along at 70. Travis Marrero, 2 receptions, 47 yards, a touchdown. Dylan Anderson, 2 catches, 90 yards, and a touchdown. So basically every wide receiver got a chance to catch a ball and take it in the end zone. On the defensive side of the ball, you had Mason Rivera had 6 tackles. Travis Marrero, getting it done on both sides of the ball, had 10 tackles. Dylan Anderson had 10 tackles, 2 for a loss, and then followed up by a whole host of other Kimball Jaguars to get it done, advancing to the 3rd round of the playoffs after a pretty impressive win over Wood.
Yeah, very impressive. I don't think it was unexpected. Wood's a newer high school over in Vacaville, and so, you know, they're starting to spread the talent amongst Vacaville High and Vacaville Christian and Wood and a couple of others. So I actually got a chance to sit with Nick in the at the Fresno State game the other night, and he had mentioned the Nance brothers. So the one is the senior, and then the freshman, he says the freshman's got wheels. So doesn't look like Kimball will be rebuilding, just more like reloading. So pretty impressive win by them. They're going to have their hands full this weekend with Merced. And so, you know, congrats to you guys for advancing. Good luck to you guys this weekend. Stay safe. As we move on, we're going to go ahead and talk about the game of the week in Stockton. Obviously, everybody had their eyes on this St. Mary's Edison matchup. St. Mary's kind of gets jumped the last week of rankings, and Edison ends up taking the 4 seed, which forced St. Mary's to travel for this game to Edison. The one thing I think I know we haven't mentioned is the fog. So Friday night, you know, changed a lot of people's game plans a little bit. You know, the fog was pretty thick. It put us in a position that, you know, all of us had to make some adjustments. I mean, you had in Sacramento, we had visibility to about 25, 30 yards. And then after that, it was very suspect. I know St. Mary's Edison game was pretty much, boxed in with fog. I talked to Nick and his dad and Tracy. They had pretty much a clear first half, and then when they got to the second half, it kind of changed things a little bit, and they ended up having a lot of fog in the second half. So the teams that threw, I think, I know for a fact, like St. Mary's, this game. St. Mary's ends up winning at Edison, but really close game. You had Asante Carter running it in late with about 6 minutes left in the game, 7 minutes left in the game, scoring a touchdown to break the 23-23 tie. St. Mary's ends up winning this game 29-23. But I know that they were having a ton of problems seeing the ball, so St. Mary's relied heavily on their run game. Cruz Herrera, he was 4 for 9 passing for 45 yards and a touchdown for a 97 quarterback rating. Jaden Marshall had 10 carries rushing for 132 yards and a touchdown. Asante Carter added 20 carries for 130 yards and a touchdown. And Jason Calvin, not to be outdone, had 4 carries for 77 yards, no touchdowns. On the receiving side of the ball, Calvin had 1 catch for 14 yards. Nas Danielson had a touchdown on 2 catches for 20 yards, and Matthew Arnado had 11 yards on 1 carry. On the defensive side of the ball, the leading tackler for St. Mary's was Andrew Andrade, had 7 tackles. Brooks Wheatley added 5 of his own. And then you had a whole host of other guys at 4 tackles. You had Dylan Lozano, Jordan Charlotte, Amari Gales, Devin Harwell, all adding 4 tackles. So I would say if nothing else, this was a team win for St. Mary's, a very good win for St. Mary's, having beat Lincoln and Edison, get bragging rights in the Stockton area for at least another year. Edison has turned this program around in a hurry. They're a juggernaut. There's somebody to be reckoned with, and I think it'd do them and everybody else a justice to move them into the T-Cal and let them and Edison and Lodi and St. Mary's and Lincoln all kind of battle it out all year long, prepare themselves more handily for playoffs. So hopefully the CIF will get it together and get that done.
Yeah, it'd be great to see regular scheduled games, having every single game when you're in a conference like that as a regular game have playoff implications. It makes the league better. It makes the teams better. It makes football better in this area, and I agree with you 100%. I'd love to see that. Next game we're going to cover real quick is the Manteca Buffaloes over the Sacramento Dragons by a score of 54-14. While the victory is not a surprise to me, I think the score is a little bit. Sacramento is a very good football team, but Manteca just kind of stuck it to them. And the story of the night was the ground game for Manteca. They put 21 points up in the first quarter, but like I said, this was all about the run. Even though you had Garrison Reese and Hudson Wyatt at quarterback, kind of sharing time at quarterback, they really got it done on the ground. You kind of had it a little bit by committee, but as we always talk about when we talk about the Manteca Buffaloes, Blake Nicholson, this guy, he was, we were hoping he'd be healthy when he came back, and I think his statistics show that he was pretty healthy. He had 15 carries for 204 yards, along a 47, and put the ball in the end zone 4 times. You accompany that with McDonald, who's a sophomore. He had 16 carries, 157 yards, and 2 touchdowns. And Hudson Wyatt, who is a junior, had 2 carries, 4 yards, and a touchdown. When you look at statistics like this and you look at the years that these guys are at, juniors and sophomores that are really leading this team, you talk about a team that's going to be good for, at the very least another year. But Manteca's good every year. There's no 2 ways around that. But I am waiting to see a team that can stop this run offense. I mean, these guys got it done, and it's pretty impressive victory over Sacramento.
Yeah, I would agree. Blake Nicholson's just he's one of the best talents in California, not just our area. So I mean, obviously it helps them to, but like you said, the scheme in and of itself will keep them relevant for years and years and years. And then again, they don't rebuild, they just reload. Go ahead and add in some of these scores out of our area. We had Antelope beating Whitney 20-14. Oakdale beats Roseville. They're in our area, but they don't post any stats. But they beat Roseville 40-0. Actually, Oakdale has 3 consecutive shutouts, so pretty impressive for them right now. Nice little run for them, getting probably hot on defense at the right time. Christian Brothers travels to Lincoln of Lincoln and loses that game 28-14. The other game in our area is the Lincoln. The Lincoln Trojans go to Folsom, lose this game 38-14. Again, Lincoln doesn't post any stats, so it's difficult for us to go ahead and break this game down. But Lincoln was in this game early, and then Folsom does what Folsom does and kind of got hot and started scoring a little bit more later. Rio Vista travels to Woodland Christian, loses that game 29-14. The other the other game that we'll actually cover in our area, since the statistics were posted, was the Merced East Union game. East Union goes down to Merced. Merced's a different animal. I mean, and they take on anybody, play anybody type of thing. So East Union had their hands full going down there. Luke Weaver has a pretty good game. Ends up 17 for 24 for 181, a touchdown and 2 picks. Also adding 6 yards rushing. So they stifled the run game, which probably made their passing game that much more inefficient or ineffective as it would have been. The leading receiver is Dylan Lee, had 4 catches for 45 yards. Kainoa Ante had 9 catches for 79 yards, and Jacob Toast added 4 catches for 57 yards. No defensive statistics were posted.
Next score we're going to cover is a trip into the Mother Lode League, where you had the Argonaut Mustangs hosting the Liberty Ranch Hawks out of Galt. This was all Mustangs, and much like Manteca, the Mustangs get it done on the ground. They're a very tough team to stop on the ground. They have a great offensive line. They have a great run game in terms of the play calling and what the coaches like to do. But that's no surprise. That's kind of been the story of Argonaut over the years. When they're successful, it's because they're running the ball and they're doing really well. So you had Caleb McElfish. He had 4 carries for 113 yards, a long of 28 with the touchdown. You had Colby Eckhart. He had 8 carries for 80 yards. And then you had Mateo Flores, who had 10 carries for 173 yards and 3 touchdowns to lead the Mustangs. Their passing wise, there was only 4 completions, and you had Randy Fage. He had 2 receptions for 53 yards and a touchdown, and Colby Eckhart had 2 receptions for 50 yards. Getting it done on defense, you had Josiah Sanders. He had 12 tackles. Caleb McElfish getting it done on both sides of the ball. He had 14. And Bo Davis, the quarterback, also getting it done on both sides of the ball, had 15 tackles, followed by a whole host of other Mustangs getting it done. So the Argonaut Mustangs advance to the 3rd round of the CIF playoffs.
Pretty cool for them. They're going to be a handful for anybody. That Cox box wing tee is difficult to defend, and they do it very efficiently and effectively. Other games we'd like to announce: Monterey Trail traveled to Granite Bay. Monterey Trail wins this game. We talked about this last week with Monterey Trail. Stacking their preseason schedule, which made their win-loss record, average at best, which put them down a tick or two. But getting a Granite Bay team and beating them, by 11 is a pretty good win for Monterey Trail. Placer goes to Vista Del Lago. Vista Del Lago wins this game 36-21. One of the upsets that I was kind of surprised with, Rosemont travels to Houston. Houston coming out of the TVL, all those tough games. Rosemont ends up being victorious 37-28 on this game. Delta goes to Esparto. Esparto wins this game 50-30. Upset of the week, probably that for in most people's eyes, was Casa Robles beating Union Mine. Union Mine being the higher seed, loses this game 35-33. The other game we'll cover in our area is the Woodland Escalon game. Woodland goes to Escalon. They Escalon wins this game 39-12. As far as the box score goes, Woodland didn't put in any stats, but Escalon did. Passing the ball, Rosavink was 3 for 12 for 50 yards, 2 interceptions. The leading rusher was junior Riker Peters. He had 13 carries for 205 yards and a touchdown. Logan Anderson added 7 for 44 and a touchdown. And J.P. Lyle added 6 carries for 30 yards and a touchdown. The leading receiver was Owen Nash with 2 catches for 44 yards. The leading tackler for Escalon was Riker Peters, had 12 tackles. Not to be outdone, Caden Gonzalez added 12 tackles of his own. And then both Tyler Medina and Nate Chavez had 6 tackles. Adding 9 tackles of his own was Jameen Miller. So very good win for Escalon. Obviously, the TVL is stout. and they gave Woodland all that they could handle. So no surprise with that game, but very good effort by Escalon this week.
Yeah, for sure. The next score we're going to cover, again, kind of dipping back into the TVL, you had Livingston playing Waterford. Waterford, with only one loss on the season, comes in hungry to get that victory, but this was all Livingston from start to finish. Rockland Bautista, really one of the top quarterbacks that we've talked about all year, was getting it done. He had some pretty impressive statistics. He had 12 completions on 17 attempts for 221 yards and 3 touchdowns for quarterback ranking of 128. On the ground, they were getting it done as well. You had Rockland had 5 carries for 61 yards, a touchdown. Carlos Baez, 7 carries for 140 yards, 2 touchdowns. Omar Baez, the second half of the brother tandem there, 5 carries, 50 yards, and a touchdown. And Kane Ambrose had a carry, 50 yards for a touchdown. This Waterford team, I think, is going to be another one, that we talk about sticking around. It'll be interesting to see what they do at quarterback. They're going to have to replace Aaron Adams, who had a great year this year for them. He was 17 of 32 and threw for 3 touchdowns. So wasn't for lack of effort on the Waterford side. I think, they just ran into a buzzsaw that's peaking at the right time. So I'm excited to see what is in store for Livingston this next week coming up.
Yeah, 76 points in that game, over 1,000 yards total between the two offenses. So it was a very entertaining game for everybody. Livingston's the real deal. They're a little bit on the larger side for the D6, but have again revitalized this program and become very very effective and efficient. They're going to be one of the tough teams in this bracket, so it should be interesting this next week. Livingston gets Argonaut, and Rosemont will play Bradshaw Christian, which leads us to the next game. And I don't usually do this because this is my game, but because it's the last game of the year, I'm going to go ahead and talk about this game. By all
means, I definitely am waiting to hear this one.
So it was a very very good game for Linden. I guess a little bit better game for Bradshaw Christian since they came out victorious in this game. Again, talking about the fog, that kind of changed our game plan. We like to throw the ball quite a bit. We still threw the ball 27 times that night. Alex Herrera was 12 for 27 for 193, 3 touchdowns for a 105 quarterback rating. Our leading rusher was Joe Cowan. He had 29 carries for 184 yards and a touchdown, and Alex added 6 carries for 21 and a touchdown. Leading receiver was Jordan Sherman. He had 8 catches for 147 yards and 2 touchdowns, and Jesus Fernandez added 2 catches for 15 yards and a touchdown. Joe Cowan also added 5 catches for 31 yards. On the defensive side of the ball, the leading tacklers for Linden were Lucas Davis had 8 tackles, Carlos Figueroa had 8 tackles, Jacob Lantixi and Miles Flint both added 7 tackles, as well as Joe Cowan had 7 tackles, and Andrew Cafton had 6 tackles. On the offensive side of the ball for Bradshaw Christian, since they're not in our division, but they were 0 for 6 passing with 1 pick. Rushing the ball, they ran the ball well. They had 48 carries for 427 yards and 5 touchdowns. Again, the Coxbox offense put us in a little bit of a bad spot. This game the score is not indicative of the game. Linden leads this game 14-7 after the first quarter. They led the game 14-7 at halftime. They led the game 26-22 after the third quarter. With 7 minutes left in the game, Linden was winning this game by 4. Gets an interception. The interception is caught on about the 16-yard line. There's a block in the back, which brings it back to the 8-yard line. A false start penalty on Linden puts it at about the 3.5-4-yard line. Bad snap. Recovered by Bradshaw Christian on the 1. Bradshaw Christian runs it in. Now they're at 4 points with about 6 minutes left in the game. Linden gets the ball back, starts driving pretty handily, gets stopped. Bradshaw on 2 or 3 carries ends up scoring another touchdown. So Linden's down 10 with about 2 minutes and 40 seconds left, 2 minutes and 50 seconds left. Linden gets the ball back, goes right down the field. In a hurry, scores with about 59 seconds left. Alex Herrera runs one in. We make the extra point. We're down 3 with about 56 seconds, 57 seconds left. Onside kicks recovered by Linden at the 50-yard line. Linden continues to move the ball pretty much at will. Gets down inside the 19-yard line, stalls out, goes for the field goal with basically no time left on the clock, 15 seconds left on the clock or whatever to tie the game. Field goal wide left, game over, season over for Linden. But The rebuild is complete. You know, got a playoff victory this year. You know, our kids played hard, worked their butts off, and did everything we asked them to. And we're a super proud organization. We're a super proud town, super proud community, and super proud high school. Great job, Linden, this season.
Yeah, what a tremendous season for you guys, and I can only echo, you know, what you're saying. It's, you know, as an alumni of there, it makes you proud to see Linden get back on the football map, and you know, hopefully, and I know this will be a trend that's going to continue. The numbers are up at Linden, unlike a lot of other programs, and there's a lot of positivity. There's a lot of excitement in the town of Linden now that football is back, and can't wait to see what lies ahead for the Lions. Moving on, we're gonna go back in the TVL. You know, the TVL just has been dominating in the playoffs, and we talked a little bit last week about the West Side, the Patterson, Gustine, or Estemba. Patterson's carrying the torch. They play a very good Yuba City Hawkers team, which, by the way, gets my vote for top mascot in the area. But Patterson ends up winning 52-48, 100 points scored in this game. You had at halftime, you had Patterson leading 38-35, and then in the second half they just traded punches, where Patterson ends up coming out again 52-48. For Patterson, a kid that we probably haven't spent enough time talking about, but his numbers really dictate that we should. Jacob Guevara, he was 11-22 for 171 yards and 4 touchdowns, and he also had another one rushing. He carried the ball 10 carries for 51 yards and a touchdown, followed up with Jadrian Lawson, who had 4 carries, 35 yards, a touchdown, and Lolo Matea had 18 carries for 75 yards and a touchdown. Receiving-wise, Damian Rosado had 5 receptions for 58 yards, 2 touchdowns, and Javier Huzar had 5 receptions, 110 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Really close game. This was all about 2 very effective offenses, and Patterson, again, another TVL team moving on to the next round of the playoffs.
As we move along, you have Elk Grove travel to Vacaville. Elk Grove wins that game 52-48, another 100-point game. Kind of complete opposite of this game. Mariposa goes to Vacaville Christian. Mariposa wins this game 7-6. Big Valley Christian travel to LeGrand. LeGrand victorious 27-6. Sheldon goes to Rockland. Rockland wins this game 42-0. We would normally cover this game, but Ripon didn't put any stats in. But Ripon travels to Pioneer, wins this game 39-20. Dixon goes to Vanden, gets completely obliterated. Vanden wins this game 61-0. The next game that we'll cover, we had him on last week. Coach George Duenas took his Lodi Flames to Central Catholic for what most people thought would just be a complete shellacking for Central Catholic. Lodi had different thoughts about that. So Lodi comes out and really punches Central Catholic in the mouth early. Central Catholic figured out they were in a football game right off the bat. They go into after the first quarter at 7-7. Lodi scores another touchdown in the second quarter. Central Catholic adds a touchdown and a field goal, so now Central Catholic is up at this point 17-14. Both teams trade 2 touchdowns in the third quarter. So Central Catholic maintains their 3-point lead. Lodi scores in the fourth quarter, goes for 2, doesn't get it. And Central Catholic gets a touchdown and the conversion, and so Central Catholic wins this game 38-4. Lodi didn't put in any stats. I can tell you what happened. There's 7 guys rushed for about 80 yards each, and they probably had 1 guy over 100. So Central Catholic has Tyler Wentworth going 7 for 10 for a touchdown and 148 yards. The leading rusher was Julian Lopez, had 18 carries for 183 yards. And 2 touchdowns. Aiden Taylor added 17 carries for 124 yards and 2 touchdowns. The leading receiver was Nolan Crosdale, had 3 catches for 60 yards and a touchdown. Aiden Taylor added 2 more catches of his own for 46 yards. Leading tackler for Central Catholic, and these are just spread out, man. You got anybody and everybody making tackles. Tyler Jacklich had 5 tackles. Brooklyn Cheek had 5 tackles. Aiden Taylor had 5 tackles. Figueroa had 4 tackles. Jalen Nichols had 4 tackles. Romeo Atiki had 3 tackles. Savala had 3 tackles. Crosdale had 3 tackles. Aiden Halverson 3 tackles. Jericho Machado 3 tackles. So it's definitely a team win for Central Catholic. I don't think Central Catholic thought that Lodi would show up the way that they did, but Lodi, proved to everybody that they're here to stay. Great job for Coach Duenas and Bishop and those guys up there in Lodi, restoring their victorious ways and impressive turnaround for that program.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't think enough can be said about Lodi in the season that they had this year, and it would have been real easy for them to go into this last week and listen to the rhetoric about how great Central Catholic is and how they didn't have a chance. They didn't listen to any of that. They're an extremely well-coached team, as you had mentioned. But I do want to give a shout-out. Watching this game a bit this week, I do want to give a shout-out. I mentioned them last week, and I'll mention them again this week. The offensive line from Lodi, I think, really got it done. They're, again, maybe one of the best offensive line coaches you can find in Coach Bishop, without a doubt. But just enough cannot be said about Lodi and the turnaround they've had, and I really am excited about watching them. And I'd mentioned some of the other teams too. We talked about East Union. East Union's a team that is kind of on this resurgence. They're making a name for themselves, and led by Luke Weaver. Fantastic quarterback, but I look for East Union to be a very good team for years to come as well. So football in this area is really balancing out, and it's fun to see.
Oh, for sure, and it's one of those things, that I think that we need to acknowledge, that East Union program took all of those coaches, the coaching staff from Kimball from a year ago. And that's who took over that program. So expect East Union to be a handful for everybody for Absolutely. A long, long time.
For sure.
The last two scores we'll cover. Hillmar beats Sonora in a revenge game for Hillmar. Actually, Hillmar won the first game. But they traveled up to Sonora, win this game 35-31. And Jesuit puts it on Del Oro and wins by over 3 scores. So as we move along this week, so we're at the end of the semis. In the D1 bracket, you have Rockland at St. Mary's. This is going to be a tough game for both teams. I mean, you have St. Mary's with maybe the best receiving core in the area, with a solid get after it team defense. Rockland has 3 Division I commits on the D line and a couple guys in the secondary, so they're going to be a handful for St. Mary's. So it's going to be our offense against your defense type of a thing. You have Jesuit hosting Folsom, so this is also a rematch from earlier in the season where Folsom won by over 5 scores. It was a complete annihilation of Jesuit early in the season. Folsom goes through their injuries and now have kind of got everybody back. Tremaine Tyler's back, so it should be a very tough game for Jesuit again. In the D2 bracket, you have Central Catholic are hosting Antelope. Central Catholic is just, again, a different beast. This the bottom half of this bracket's pretty impressive because both of the lower seeds end up winning this game. So you have Elk Grove playing Monterey Trail. I think they already played earlier in the season, but they're a 6 and a 7 seed, so you don't have that happen often. So pretty impressive there. The semifinal games for the D3 bracket, you have Oakdale hosting Patterson and Manteca hosting Lincoln of Lincoln. Both of those games should be difficult. Could obviously see another VOL rematch with Manteca and Oakdale. In the D4 bracket, Kimball will take on the very tough Merced team. This is going to be a lot for Kimball. They're a big physical team, much like Central Catholic, and probably not as physical, but pretty much like that. And that was the toughest game that Kimball's found themselves in this year. And then Vista Del Lago travels to Vanden. Vanden's one of those teams that is just going to be loaded with athletes. So should Kimball and Vanden both advance, I think that game is going to be an absolute shootout for these guys. You want to cover the 5 and 6 brackets? Yeah,
absolutely. No question. A game that probably will not be very well attended is going to be the Escalon Ripon game. Wink, wink, hint, hint. We're recording the show on a Tuesday, and I would guess that that's very close to being sold out, if not already.
It's sold out.
Yeah, for sure. But probably one of those games that if you got tickets to it, you're gonna have a hell of a night because that's gonna be a great game. Not to be outdone by Hillmar and Casa Robles. Hillmar's gonna have their hands full with Casa Robles. Robles, I always say that. Roble. Casa Roble.
Yeah, Casa.
Casa Roble. Anyway, with them knocking off Union Mine, they're going to definitely be a team that's going to be a tough out for Hilmar. But I'm excited to see the possibility of an all TVL final here.
It's crazy.
And,
how does this happen? I mean, you put 3 TVL teams into a bracket of 12, and all 3 are in the Final Four.
Well,
I mean,
it speaks to the strength of the league. I mean, the TVL has always been a strong league, but I think now in recent years, the way that they've structured the playoffs, I think it allows a league like the TVL to really show. I mean, before, when everything was stick to the playoffs, they take the top 2 or whatever the playoff format was in the past. This is a chance for the TVL to show, hey, look, we're one of the top conferences around. We can play with anyone. And I think it adds to the argument that you and I have talked about a lot on this show is we need to change the way that we're doing things in the regular season. We need to go to matching, a kind of a relegation format where we're putting the best teams against the best teams and we're letting the other teams play where they can experience success as well, instead of going in and getting your butt kicked a little bit, but 52-0. That's not good for anybody. So I will step back down off the soapbox on that one. The Division 6 playoffs, again, I think this is another stacked one. You've got Bradshaw Christian playing Rosemont. Rosemont knocking off Houston, which I think is an upset, showing that Rosemont is a very good team. Bradshaw Christian is rolling on all cylinders right now. They had a very tough victory against Linden last week. I see them going in and they're still the pick in this game in my book. But then you've got on the other side of the bracket, you got Livingston versus Argonaut. You've got a running team versus a passing team, and it's going to be. I think this game is going to be dictated by how well both defenses play.
So I will say this. This is my prediction, and I'm not, I don't have a dog in the fight. Livingston has faced Escalon, Houston, Ripon, Hilmar. Argonaut they faced Sonora, and the rest of the MLO was weak this year. So Argonaut and the fortunate thing for Livingston is that they've seen a heavy run game. So they're not that they're ready for it, not that they can shut them down. I'm not saying that, but they are more prepared than Argonaut is for the Livingston pass game. So if Livingston's smart, and they stay true to what they are and want to throw the ball and put Argonaut on their heels, because again, they haven't seen it. I personally think Livingston is a team that's going to be difficult to win or difficult to beat. Argonaut, if anybody's going to beat them, it's going to be Argonaut. But my prediction is whoever wins this game wins this section.
Yeah, they're going to, Argonaut's going to have to find a way to shut down Rockland Bautista. I mean, he's just proven how good of a quarterback he is in a year that we've seen a lot of great quarterbacks. He's definitely one of the best in our section. And if Argonaut can shut him down, they win. If they can't, it's Livingston.
Agreed.
Without a doubt. And then moving on to the last bracket here, I'm going to make a pretty bold prediction. You've got Woodland Christian is playing Esparto, 1 versus 4. And then on the second half of the bracket, you've got 2 Southern Sac Joaquin section teams in LeGrand and Mariposa. Mariposa is the number 7 seed here, but this is a school that historically is just tough as nails.
Yep.
And I think it sounds funny, but I think they get some of their toughness by the football field that they play on. When you have to play on the same field that they run a destruction derby in the county fair, and you're falling on bolts and stuff like that. All joking aside, again, Mariposa is a very good team. They're the number 7 seed here, but I really like them to win the whole thing.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a bracket that, Woodland Christian's obviously the favorite. Esparto's a good team, kind of on the come up, haven't been there. Might have a little bit of an issue with that piece. And like you said, Mariposa wins this game 7-6 last week and beating Vacaville Christian. So they're battle tested. So as we kind of wind down this week, it's just so great to have football back, and it's so great to have the Friday Night Lights back, and it's so great to have, I saw pictures throughout the weekend of all these games on Twitter and Instagram and Max Preps and what have you. Some of the most iconic photos that we'll have in our area probably in a long time. That foggy backdrop, just the kind of the mud, and the grime, and guys just kind of getting after it, and so I don't know what the weather has in store for us this week, and hopefully it holds true, because you like to see the teams that are balanced and that are the throwing teams not kind of be have to change their game plan due to weather. So I don't think we're going to get much rain or anything, but who knows about the fog.
Yeah, it's kind of a renaissance period in my book. If you're around in the early 80s and you were following high school football back then, it seemed like almost every year during the playoffs you're dealing with fog.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like we're going back to that. And it's really it's a neat feeling. It's weather has always been part of football history, and this is no different. So it's kind of exciting. One other thing I want to point out in regards to the St. Mary's game, the principal of St. Mary's, Mike Wright, who's a good friend of mine, he's hosting a pregame up in, I forgot where it's at, up in Rockland. If you get to go, please go to that. So Mike has to buy extra pizzas and really spend some money. So look out for that. But good luck to all the teams that are playing this week. And just remember, you win this week, you're practicing over Thanksgiving break. And the fact that if you get to practice over Thanksgiving break, that's an honor. So really work for that. Good luck to everybody.
Hell yeah. It's exciting to see this whole thing wind down and the cream rises to the top type of a thing, and the teams that are blessed enough to keep advancing. Good luck to you guys. Everybody stay healthy and safe. Hopefully have some great football this weekend. All of us are blessed to have NFHS post video for these games, and so those of us that can't attend all of them, I'll be able to watch a couple of the games while I'm at the St. Mary's game this week. So it's making all of our jobs easier. The evolution of high school football in California is crazy. And the opportunities in the 209, our area of coverage, we have athletes galore in the 209, and it's awesome for us to be able to see these kids evolve and play at a high level. And the last thing on the way out the door, I'd like to give a shout out to Greg Pinelli and Pinelli Passing Academy. Greg still has 6 quarterbacks in the playoffs out of the 7 divisions. Greg and I talked about it this morning. His first year, after he completed his very first year, he had 2 quarterbacks even make the playoffs. This year he had 26 of his quarterbacks made playoffs, and 6 are still there. Actually 8 are still there, but 6 are still there in our area. So kudos to Greg and his guys, and you're talking about Nick Coronado and Hudson Wyatt and Cruz Herrera and Jackson Holt and Tyler Wentworth and on and on and on. The Ripon quarterback, I'm sorry, I'm forgetting your name right now, but just an impressive run for these guys and Greg and that work ethic these kids put in and the time that they put in. I don't think people understand how much work that these kids put in on a regular basis, not just during the season, but in the off season as well. So congratulations. Everybody stay healthy and safe. Here's to some great games this weekend, and looking forward to covering them this week.